Greetings, YouTube. We get to see my new thrift store sweater. Sunku91 had a question a while back concerning treasure allocation and random encounters in a purchased module. Now, I answered his question in a private message, but I thought I would also take the opportunity to use that as an inspiration for a video. So essentially, he's running a module. We've all done it. And that has random encounters in it, which happens. And he wanted to know if they overcome the random encounter through hook or by crook, combat, guile, trickery, whatever. Should he give them treasure from that encounter, or should he only give them treasure for the module itself? He's concerned about throwing off the amount of cash that's in the module itself. And I can understand that. Though I can remember back in the first edition days when that was not a concern. When you would get an ungodly amount of treasure in the modules, it was just unbelievable. Go take a look at the first edition Giant series. Just unreal. But I don't think you should cheat players. If they overcome an obstacle, there should be some kind of reward. Now, I can fully understand a GM not wanting to give additional liquid assets to the group, because that might have an immediate effect on throwing the curve in their favor, allowing them to instantaneously purchase things that the GM had not predicted or planned, or the module had not planned, that the player characters would have access to. So instead of giving immediate liquid assets, I mean, you should give a few. I mean, it would make perfect sense if you kill an orc, he's got a few coins in his pocket. But instead of giving a whole lot of treasure, say from the leader of an orc raiding band or something, give them something that's a little less immediate and a little more long-term. For example, they find a signet ring. Now, the signet ring belonged to someone. Who does it belong to? Where is that person? There's a new plot hook. If the person is now dead, where are they located? The family may want to recover the remains. The family may give a reward for returning the ring, even if the remains cannot be recovered, because that signet ring is normally going to be a family heirloom. Give them a legal document. It was being taken from point A to point B, and the characters continued the delivery, they're going to get a reward. Or, give them a legal document, they figure out how they can play the legal document to their advantage and make some kind of deal on their own. Maybe it's a third party that would be really interested in knowing about this. Or maybe they can do a forgery and get an immediate profit, or at least a long-term profit, for the group itself, depending on what the moral compass is of the group in question. What if they find a treaty? Okay. That could be really important. And again, more plot hooks. They find artwork. And it could be temporary, less durable goods, such as a painting or a tapestry or an expensive rug. One time I gave out a bolt of, or they discovered a bolt of elven drow cloth in a light-proof box. The person stole it, seeing the box was valuable, opened it up in the daylight, and the material just disappeared in the sunlight. But again, you could give something that's a little harder to get rid of immediately, a bolt of elven cloth. Ingots of dwarven mithril, or mithril, depends how you want to say that. These things are less immediately liquidatable. They can't just be instantly turned into profit, and you may have to hunt down a buyer. Yeah, you could just take it to the local trader, but the local trader isn't going to give you a lot of money for something that they themselves are going to have to hunt down a buyer for. So the player characters may be sitting on something for a little while, looking for a buyer to get a better price. And again, looking for a buyer, that's a new plot hook, because they're very likely not going to find a new buyer in the immediate vicinity of where that adventure is. They may have to go somewhere exceptional. And again, that takes them into a new area, new adventures, yada, yada, yada. So all of these ideas are things that can be taken into account. And say if the item is a durable piece of jewelry or treasure. Say it's artwork, it's like a statue. Or a famous shield. Not famous because it's magical, famous because it was made by a famous smith. And it would have some value to their family, or if their family's now gone, to a museum, or to a researcher, or to a collector. What if they interrupt the transaction between a thief and the person that hired the thief? So now the player characters have a hot item on their hands. They took it off an orc band that killed the thief. Okay, cool. They don't know it's hot. So what happens when they go to sell it? They could be selling it back to the people it was stolen from, and suddenly they're in some hot water. I had a case where a player character needed a bow, got a really good deal on a nice quality bow, unaware of the fact that it was a bow that had been stolen from a military unit, and was marked as such. The thief had obscured this, but the people that it had formerly owned it, the military unit, knew where to look and were able to identify that it was their bow. Got that player character in a whole lot of trouble. Why do you have a stolen piece of military equipment? Again, new plot hooks, new ideas that can take you into different directions. So there are ways of giving treasure that are not going to be immediately of benefit to the player characters, that may not be of benefit for them at all long term, but the item itself has an intrinsic value. It is technically treasure, but it could be worth a greater headache than it's worth. The classic Maltese falcon. It's the stuff that dreams are made of. So what if that item becomes an albatross? The player characters are stuck with it. They don't know what to do with it. And of course, you can make this as complex as you want to. There could be 2 people involved. There could be 3. There could be 5 different people involved. All people vying for a piece of artwork or a piece of famous historical evidence or an artifact. An artifact in the sense of, historically significant piece of material, as opposed to an artifact, magical item that's incredibly powerful. What if they find themselves in possession of the only copy of a dwarven book with pages made from mithril? And it's the only copy in the world of this book. Can anyone in the group read it? And if they can, what does it say? Is it in a code? And I think how hard a dwarven code might be to break. So you have to get past the dwarven language, then you have to get past the fact that there's someone that's created a code that may have taken them decades, centuries to fabricate. Maybe one that uses magic involved, so you can't just read it with the spell. And what does it say? What is it hiding? Is it a beer recipe? So there are lots of ways of giving out treasure that aren't going to be just immediate profit. And then that all of them can be some kind of a plot hook that takes the characters into a new direction and gives them something that they didn't have before as far as the material is concerned, but also a deeper involvement in the fabric of the campaign itself. What if they discover that because of what they find, it means they have a greater number of relationships in the area that they're currently using as their base? So when they decide to leave the base, there are ramifications to that. They have established relationships with the people there. What if they don't want to leave just because this has now become home? This is the place where we returned, the Rutherford family signet ring to them, and we helped the dwarven sage Balthazar finally discover the book that he had been spent looking for the past 15 years, or 150 years, or 300 years. You can help immerse the characters in the fabric of the campaign more deeply through some of the items that they encounter just randomly. Now, obviously, not everything's going to want to be that complex. You're not going to want to have an item like this in every single encounter that they have. But you can make it a little more difficult. They find a keg of wine. Sure, they can drink it. What if it's worth something? It means they have to take it back to town. Argonian brandy or something, you know what I mean? Something that's just not all that common that could be useful. They find some smoke powder. Alchemical version of gunpowder. But no one in the group knows what it is, but they can tell from the symbols on it that it's something. So maybe that takes them to a new direction. But that's a fairly minor item. But it could get them new contacts, and that's always good. So, I want to know, what kind of unusual items have you given to characters, and do you give treasure out that is less than immediately profitable? Things that may require the player characters to get out there and get themselves involved in the world and really have to look for that profit.